Hello and welcome to this one Saki boy's opinion. Okay, guys, I just played this game called Code Vein and I really liked it. Okay, so it's a action RPG Souls like game, and it's amazing. The thing that sets apart this game from just looking at it was the fact that it had a uh, anime aesthetic to it, which was for me personally, it's really great because I love anime, so I love the aesthetic. I love JRPGs and such, so this was right up my alley. I loved it. So I want to talk about this because I really liked it, and yeah, just so let's start with the visuals. Like I said, it's anime aesthetic, so it's very anime visuals. The thing about anime visuals is that it's more about the character visuals than the other things, because the character designs are the thing that stand out in anime most of the time. The scenery and stuff, it's all pretty generic in a sense, but the anime style is what makes it unique. I really love it. The character designs are very memorable and unique. Some very unique, if you know what I mean. Um, and yeah, that's about it from the visual point. And the music, well, the music is also pretty good. I like it. There are a few themes that I really like, and a lot that just blend into the background and don't really notice this unless you really focus on it. So that's also pretty good in a sense, because you don't want the music to really be out of place or anything. It just really melds into the combat in a sense, which I really like. And well, let's get to the gameplay. Well, the gameplay is also pretty great. It's your typical action RPG, Dark Souls s combat. It's a lot similar to Dark Souls in its speed and stuff, but the only difference is that you have more skills and more stuff to use. Well, in Dark Souls, the combat is mainly just your uh, single heavy attack, light attack, and such, and a special move of each weapon. That's still here, but here you can use special skills uh, that give you two, three, four, or depending on the weapon you're using, you can have special moves in it, which greatly differentiate it from in the combat sense, because you can do some serious damage with these moves, and it's really great when you use them. Well, there is a downfall that you can't control them in a sense, because if you start a move, you can't really just cancel out of it, so you're stuck with finishing the entire move. And if the and majority of the enemies don't really get knocked by these moves for the most part. Some do, some don't, but the majority I felt didn't. So it's more about damage than practical use in a sense, because you're trying to use this move, and a guy from behind or side pops in and just whacks you, and you stops your move. So that gets pretty annoying in some situations. And yeah, the combat is for the most part pretty substantial. It's not like something that's really amazing or different from the other Dark Souls esque games, but it's pretty good in my opinion. It's simple and it's effective. Rather than having specific stats you can just allocate points to, it just does it for you, in a sense that you just level up your level, and that increases all your stats equally. And then you can equip a blood code, which is basically your class. There's no downside to changing it. You can just change it whenever you want. You don't even have to get to a checkpoint or anything. You could just change it on the fly. Like, it's that. Like, just open a menu and boom, you're done. It's very simple. And for the most part, I didn't feel the changing had a really big impact. The biggest thing that happened was the amount of ichor you had, and ichor is basically your skill points that you use. Not skill points, your mana in a sense, the amount of MP you have in a sense, so to use skills and such. So mage-esque blood codes give you more ichor and uh, more melee or more melee focused give you less, but also give you more ability to equip heavier weapons without getting really slowed in a sense, which I also which is also pretty balanced in my opinion. It's really good. And apart from that, you have you have your blood veils, which basically armors and like it's probably it's a more or less same like other games, but there's a few key differences here in the armors. Is that they just aren't armor. They have also a bit of skill in a sense. Well, I don't know the difference. Uh, the main difference I believe is that when you have a blood coat, it has either a piercing attack when you use it, when you do special attacks like attack from the back, like a backstab or a parry or anything like that. When you use these, the damage they do is the type is the type with the blood code you have. So oh sorry, not blood code, but the code, the blood veil you have. So if you have a blood veil that has a piercing, whenever you backstab or parry the dude and you do do to the parry, you do piercing attacks and yada yada. You get the point. It's pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory in that sense. And yeah, the combat's pretty good in that sense. Now, the biggest there are mainly two issues that the game has, in my opinion. One is the enemy variety. It's not that much. It's pretty mediocre in a sense. You basically have your 3 or 4 enemy types that just get recycled in every area with just a different skin, and you have a few area specific enemies, and that's it. Probably like 5 or 6 types of enemies in each area, and 3 or 4 of those are recycled. So yeah, the enemy variety is something that really is the least interesting in this game, in my opinion. So yeah, and now let's get back. I've talked about the visuals, the music, the combat. Now let's get to the characters in the game, or which, in my opinion, is a really great thing also because they're amazing. Like the companions in this game are pretty amazing. I love them all. The thing about the companions in this game that differs from the other games is that is that uh, is that in most RPGs, your companions don't really do much. They're mostly there to carry your stuff and distract the enemy. That's pretty much it. That's all they do in a sense. Now in this game, they are really useful in the sense that they hold their own in the game. Like there'll be times where you're getting your ass kicked and they're the ones saving you, which is something that you rarely see in games and these types of games. Most of the time you're the one saving their ass again and again and again, but here is the opposite instead. It's like they save you more than you save them, and a lot of times, like I could easily recall a lot of situations where I was getting my ass kicked, but then my companion would just come out from behind and just whack them all dead. And like it was really cool. I found it was really cool. Yeah, the companions are pretty awesome in that sense. Oh yeah, the story. Okay, let's talk about the story. It's a pretty okay in a sense. It's not a really that amazing of a story. It's a somewhat interesting story, but there's nothing in it that really makes me go like, whoa, that was amazing, or plot twists or characters and shit. It's pretty simple in a sense. It's not like the most greatest story I've ever heard. It's a pretty Dark Souls-esque story, if you know what I mean by that. Like there's bad things have happened, and your characters are basically trying to live in this bad world, and yeah, yeah, yeah. Now I'll go into the details because the story isn't really something you can talk about, but it's pretty simple when you play the game. Another really big problem that I've heard people have is that the level design is very bad. And now it's by very bad, a lot of people basically mean two areas to one area in particular, which is the cathedral, if I remember correctly. And it is a maze with a very, very generic look, and it is very plain. Now it makes it very confusing and very easy to get lost. But the thing about it that was that I didn't have that problem because it was very, very very simple if you were not running through it. I was really I was really being thorough with the area, and I was using the map a lot. Now the map in this game is pretty good in the sense that when you travel in it leaves behind these dots, and for the most part, how the map is structured is that you don't know what's on the map until you find a mistle, which basically opens shows you the map after you collected a specific part of the map, and the dots allow you to remember where you came from. So for the most part, the maze, in my opinion, didn't wasn't that big of a problem. Maybe that reason was because when I heard about it, I was like, oh shit, this place is gonna be a nightmare to go through because I'm not good with puzzles and mazes and stuff. So I was like, it's gonna be a drag in a sense. But maybe because it was so much hyped up in a sense that this place is gonna be trash, that I was like ready for it. So when it came, I was prepared for it. So I believe that's the reason why I wasn't really having. I really didn't have a lot of problem with it. Yeah, and yeah, that's about it. Maybe there are a few things I can talk about, but I feel like I've talked mostly about everything. Majority of the game I'll enjoy it. I think it is one of the better Dark Souls s games. It's probably my favorite out of all the Dark Souls inspired games I've played. It is that good when combined together. It's got really everything I wanted. It's got a good story, simple but good story. It's got some likable and memorable characters, and the combat, in my opinion, is pretty great. Now there are problems with the combat, like I said. Another thing that I should mention is that I played the game roughly around 73 hours, which is a lot. I had 3 playthroughs. The first playthrough was a pretty thorough one. I just looked under every nook and cranny, fought every enemy, found everything. I maxed out all of the blood codes and stuff, all of the gifts you get, and I was pretty thorough with the game in my first playthrough. And around the last boss fight, I had 160 level, which is pretty substantial, and I think that was the problem, that I was pretty overpowered in a sense because I over leveled. So my second and the companion thing was that it made it a lot easier. Basically, your companion was a safe net because in this game your companion can bring you back to life whenever you die. Now that is pretty balanced in my opinion because they can't do it freely. There are also caveats to doing it. Basically, they also lose a lot of HP of their own HP whenever they do it. So basically, they can be just killed by one hit if an enemy attacks after they revive you. And also there's a cooldown for that ability, which is pretty decently long. It's not really quick, but it's not really long. It's like in the middle for the most part. It's pretty good in that sense. And then yeah, so I thought maybe I should play the game again without the companion. So my second playthrough was it was pretty quick because I didn't really try to search everything again because I knew what where it was, so I wasn't really going to find anything new. So I rushed through it, and due to the fact that I was 160 leveled, and that was pretty high so it was pretty easy again. There were a few moments where I was like, I had to struggle a bit, but for the most part, it wasn't that. But the thing was that this game also has an enhanced playthrough, which is basically when you beat the game, you get the choice to choose either play again at the regular, the normal difficulty, or play the enhanced difficulty. Now, when I first beat the game and it asked me this question, I went for enhanced because yeah, I know I'll go with that. So I went with enhanced, and as I told, I was going to play this game without the companion in my second playthrough. So I thought, yeah, I'll play enhanced without the companion, but that was a bad idea, to be honest, because in enhanced it's really amped up. The difficulty really skyrockets in my opinion, because for the most part, most enemies can either 3-shot you or 2-shot you, and most bosses can either 1-shot you or 2-shot you, depending on your build. Um, and that was really hard to do. It wasn't easy keeping up with that shit because it was such a drastic change from my first playthrough. Like jump was too high, so then I loaded back a save which I had made. I had kept, so I went back and I did the last boss again, and then I picked the normal, and then in that normal playthrough I went without a companion, and that playthrough was relatively fun. There were, like I said, I was struggled in a few parts, but for the most part, they were pretty enjoyable. Now, the third playthrough was the enhanced version of was in the enhanced difficulty, but I also kept my companion because I feel like the companions add so much to the game. They make it a lot more enjoyable, in my opinion. Some people do find it that they are a bit too OP in a sense because they make the game very safe in a sense, because you're not as scared for your life because you know your companion can revive you if you die. It's kind of like the Sekiro thing where you die, you come back, so there's a safety net, but after that there's no safety net. So that's like the companion thing, because if your companion is ended, there is no safety net now for you. So yeah, and then my third playthrough started, and it was relatively fun. Now, the thing here is that in the third playthrough, it felt like now this was more geared toward with the companions, because in this difficulty, I struggled a lot. In a few bosses, definitely. Now, the enemies, the regular mobs, weren't that big of a deal. They were pretty easily dispatchable, but a few of the bosses were just, oh my god, they were tough. They were tougher than some Dark Souls, easily tougher than a lot of Dark Souls bosses, in my opinion. There were two in particular that I had really, three to be exact, where I had a really hard time with it. Two were two were more. The third was just I was just in the right mindset in a sense. Now the first was Juzo Mido was the name, I guess. Yeah, that's the name. And he just one shot me at any point in the fight, man. I mean, just and the fact and well, I won't go into specifics, but it was a hard fight. And the second was the Skull King, which is also a pretty difficult boss. But I managed to pull through. It was really intense. I loved the fight, both of them. They were hard as hell at some points, and but man, they were fun after you beat them. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about the game. It's pretty great. If you haven't played the game, I would highly recommend playing it if you like Dark Souls and you like anime aesthetic games. I'm like, even if you like JRPGs, I think with the companions, and if you don't like really difficult games, with the companions, this is a game that anyone can play. Anyone can enjoy, even people who don't like the difficulty of Dark Souls. With the companion, that also really negates all the difficulty that comes with Dark Souls. So I would highly recommend, if you ever thought about playing a Dark Souls as game, this is a great one to get into if you can. because the companions really help and make this a much more enjoyable experience for someone who's new to Dark Souls. So I would highly recommend checking it out. And yeah, that's my opinion on it. I really like the game, and yeah, and this was one Saki Boy's opinion on Code Vein. Bye bye.